The orbital market of Karth Station was never quiet. Ships from hundreds of star systems drifted in and out of its massive docking rings, their engines glowing like distant stars. Traders shouted in dozens of languages. Merchants displayed exotic creatures behind shimmering containment fields, and bounty hunters bargained over prisoners captured from distant wars. To most people, it was a place of opportunity. To others, it was the end of hope. In the darkest corner of Dock Ring 7 stood a transparent containment pod. Inside sat a young alien woman with silver-gray skin and faint violet markings across her arms. Her name was Larissa, and nobody wanted her. The traders around the stall barely bothered to call out her price anymore. For 3 days she had been displayed there, and every potential buyer had turned away. Some laughed. Some looked uncomfortable. Others simply ignored her. Defective, one merchant had said earlier. Unstable genetics, another whispered. Bad omen species, a third muttered before quickly leaving. Larissa heard every word. Her species, the Volari, were once respected across the outer systems. They were known for their empathy, their natural telepathic resonance, and their ability to stabilize unstable starship neural interfaces. But everything changed 20 years ago. A catastrophic event, known across the galaxy as the Volari Pulse Incident, had caused a psychic shockwave that disabled dozens of ships simultaneously. Entire fleets drifted helplessly through space. Millions blamed the Volari. Fear replaced respect. And slowly, the species became unwanted everywhere. Most Volari were exiled from civilized systems. Others were quietly sold into servitude. Larissa had been one of the unlucky ones. She had been captured while fleeing a destroyed colony ship and brought here to Karth Station. For weeks she had watched others being purchased and taken away. But her turn never came, because Larissa was worse than the others. She was what traders called a resonant. Her psychic field was stronger than most Volari. When emotions around her spiked, her abilities reacted unpredictably. Lights flickered. Systems malfunctioned. People called it dangerous. So buyers walked past her cage like she didn't exist. By the 4th day, even the merchant selling her looked annoyed. Waste of dock space, he grumbled. He kicked the console beside her pod, causing the containment field to flicker. Maybe someone desperate will take you for scrap work. Larissa lowered her eyes. She had stopped hoping long ago. Then the human arrived. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Their species had only joined the wider galactic community about 60 years earlier. Many civilizations still didn't know what to think of them. Some called them reckless. Others called them stubborn. Most agreed on one thing. Humans were unpredictable. The man walking through the market that day certainly looked like it. He wore a dark pilot's jacket, heavy boots, and carried a worn tool bag slung over one shoulder. His brown hair was slightly messy, and his eyes scanned the market with quiet curiosity rather than suspicion. His name was Ethan Hale, and he had absolutely no intention of buying anyone. Ethan had come to Karth Station for spare ship parts. His cargo freighter, Wayfarer, had a failing coolant regulator, and he needed something cheap before his next contract. But as he passed through Dock Ring 7, something strange happened. He stopped walking. Not because someone called out. Not because something caught his eye. But because he felt something. A faint pressure in his chest. A quiet sadness that didn't belong to him. Ethan frowned. What the? He turned his head slowly until his eyes landed on the containment pod. Larissa looked up at the exact same moment. Their eyes met through the transparent field. And for the first time in days, something changed. Ethan felt it immediately. A gentle wave of emotion. Fear, loneliness, exhaustion. It wasn't overwhelming. It was just there, like standing near someone who was silently crying. He stepped closer. The merchant noticed instantly. Interested? The trader asked quickly, suddenly energetic. Ethan didn't answer right away. He studied the alien woman inside the pod. She looked fragile. Not physically weak. Her posture was upright and dignified, but emotionally worn down, like someone who had already accepted defeat. What species? Ethan asked. Valari, the merchant replied. Ethan raised an eyebrow. The ones everyone blames for that fleet shutdown? The merchant shrugged. Rumors and fear sell well. Ethan crossed his arms. And her problem? Resonant, the merchant said bluntly. Strong psychic field. It causes system interference. Nobody wants that headache. Inside the pod, Larissa felt a familiar wave of dread. This was usually the part where buyers left. Ethan, however, tilted his head thoughtfully. That's it. The merchant blinked. What? That's the problem? Ethan repeated. She messes with electronics sometimes? Yes. And that makes her worthless? Correct. Ethan scratched his chin. Huh. The merchant leaned forward eagerly. I'll sell her cheap. How cheap? The trader typed something into his console and turned the screen. Ethan stared at the number. Then he laughed. Are you serious? The merchant frowned. It's a generous offer. That's the price of a mid-grade navigation chip, Ethan said. Then think of her as one. Inside the pod, Larissa closed her eyes. This humiliation again. But Ethan didn't walk away. Instead, he stepped closer to the containment field. Hey, he said gently. Larissa looked up. Ethan spoke slowly. Can you understand me? She nodded. Yes. Her voice was quiet but clear. Ethan glanced at the merchant. Does she talk normally, or is that extra? Very funny, the trader muttered. Ethan looked back at her. What's your name? Larissa. All right, Larissa, Ethan said, crouching slightly to be at eye level with the pod. I'm Ethan. For some reason, that simple introduction confused her. Nobody had introduced themselves to her in weeks. They usually just discussed her like an object. Why are you here? Ethan asked softly. Larissa hesitated. Then she answered honestly. Because nobody wants a Valari. Ethan frowned. That's a stupid reason. The merchant scoffed. Spoken like someone who hasn't experienced a resonant meltdown. Ethan stood up. Fine. I'll take her. The entire stall went silent. The merchant stared. You're serious? Yes. You understand the risks? Yep. You can't return her. Not planning to. The trader quickly began processing the transaction before Ethan could change his mind. Within minutes, the containment field powered down. The pod door slid open. Larissa stepped out slowly, uncertain. For the first time in weeks, she was free. She looked at Ethan with confusion. You bought me. Technically, he said. Why? Ethan shrugged casually. Because everyone else didn't. That answer made no logical sense. But somehow it felt sincere. The Wayfarer was not an impressive ship. It was an old cargo freighter with patched hull panels and a cockpit that smelled faintly of machine oil and recycled air. But to Larissa, it felt like stepping into another world. Ethan tossed his tool bag onto a table. Welcome aboard. She looked around cautiously. You are not afraid of me? Ethan blinked. Should I be? My resonance can disrupt systems. Well, he said casually, pointing around the cockpit, half the stuff already barely works, so you're not exactly lowering the bar. For the first time in weeks, Larissa almost smiled. Ethan noticed. See? Already improving morale. She tilted her head. Morale? Ship mood, he explained. Very important. She studied him carefully. You are unusual. Humans get that a lot. He opened a cabinet and tossed her a packaged meal ration. Eat. You look like you haven't in a while. She caught it. Thank you. Ethan leaned against the console. So tell me something, Larissa. Yes. That resonance thing, can you control it? She hesitated. Not perfectly. What triggers it? Strong emotion. Ethan nodded slowly. Well, he said, grabbing a wrench. Good news.
What?
My ship runs on chaos and emotional instability. Larissa stared at him. You're joking. Mostly. For the first time since her capture, she laughed softly. And the lights flickered. Ethan looked up. Okay, that part's real. Days passed. Then weeks. And something surprising happened. Larissa's presence didn't damage the Wayfarer. It improved it. Her resonance allowed her to sense subtle fluctuations in the ship's neural interface before they became problems. She could feel energy imbalances, detect failing circuits, even stabilize certain systems by synchronizing her psychic field with the ship's control matrix. Ethan discovered this completely by accident when a reactor fluctuation stabilized the moment she entered the engine room. Wait, he said slowly. Did you just fix that? I balanced the energy flow. Ethan stared at her. You're a living diagnostic system. I suppose. Within a month, the Wayfarer ran better than it had in years. Contracts became easier. Profits improved. But something else changed too. Larissa herself. The sadness she carried began to fade. Because Ethan never treated her like property. He treated her like a partner. One evening, while watching stars drift past the cockpit window, she finally asked the question she had been holding for weeks.
Ethan.
Yeah. Why did you truly choose me? He thought about it, then answered simply. Because everyone else decided you weren't worth anything. She waited. And I've learned that when the entire galaxy agrees about something, he said, leaning back in his chair, they're usually wrong. Larissa felt her chest tighten. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Belonging. 6 months later, the Wayfarer returned to Karth Station. But this time, the market reacted differently. Because rumors had spread. About a human pilot whose ship never malfunctioned. About impossible navigation precision. About a mysterious alien partner who could feel star systems like music. Traders whispered as Ethan and Larissa walked through Dock Ring 7. The same merchant who once sold her stared in disbelief. You came back. Ethan grinned. Business trip. The trader looked at Larissa. You look different. She stood tall now. Confident.
Calm.
No, she said gently. I am simply no longer unwanted. Ethan clapped the merchant on the shoulder. Turns out she was the best purchase I ever made. Larissa looked at him. You did not purchase me. He smiled. Fair point. She turned toward the docking bay window, watching ships come and go. Once, she had sat in a cage here, rejected by everyone. Now she stood beside someone who saw her value when no one else did. And sometimes that single choice was enough to change everything. Because in a galaxy full of fear and judgment, one human had simply decided to look closer. And that decision had given a forgotten alien woman something she thought she had lost forever. A future.